If you ever tried making a perimeter, you know that clearing the trenches is the most annoying part, especially because you have to remove a lot of liquids. This is why SG, Divided and Shinji, designed these trenches. They allow you to make the main and side trenches for a world eater fully automatically, as long as you prepare the terrain correctly. These trenches grab all the blocks in front of them and bring them up so they can get destroyed by the TNT. There is a 12 wide and a 3 wide version, and they each have versions with different height to work in the Overworld as well as in the Nether, with or without the Nether roof broken. In this video I'm going to explain how to prepare the terrain correctly in both dimensions. I'm going to give you some tips for building the machines in survival, and I'm going to show you how you can fix them if they break. In both dimensions you need to make a bottom trench and remove the immovables. The bottom trench needs to be 2 blocks high and either 3 or 12 blocks wide. If the trench is small, it's easier to mine it, especially in the Nether, but for the 12 wide you can use a tunnel bore if the trench is long. Keep in mind that if you have holes in the ceiling, sometimes gravel can fall and land in front of the trencher. That's why it's safer to have a solid ceiling and fill the gaps. To remove the immovables, it's usually easier to check the trenches in FreeCam or Spectator to look for obsidian, spawner, chest, barrels, bee nest, and deep dark biomes that have a lot of immovables. You can also make a schematic of the area to check it in a creative world. The highest terrain should be just below the trapdoor. You can use a regular TNT duper to remove everything that is above. In the Nether, that's all you need to do. There is no need to remove any lava that is in the way of the trencher. If you decide to break the Nether roof, you can use a tall trencher, otherwise you can also remove the terrain down to the trapdoors and use a smaller trencher. That will already save a lot of work. In the Overworld, there are 3 things that you need to do. The first thing is to prevent cobblestone or obsidian to generate when you have lava and water close together. The safest way is to completely remove one of the 2 liquids, usually the one that is less common in the trench. If you have an ocean, for example, it's going to be a lot easier to remove the lava. The second thing is to remove all the blocks that could update the trencher. That means blocks like trapdoors if there is a shipwreck, village, igloo or a trial jumper. And also all the skulk sensors adjacent to the trencher. And lastly, if you are in the desert, there can be 7 high sun columns which could break the trencher. You can just mine the first few layers of the terrain to make sure that doesn't happen. Now I'm gonna give you some tips for when you're building these trenches and also how to align them. To make some space for the trenches, you can either mine the blocks or use this machine made by Lazy Perfection. You can see how to line it by looking at those blocks, and you can place it roughly 20 blocks above the terrain just to be safe. Then you just have to press this node block once, it will assemble the TNT dupers, and then each time you press the node block, it will send some TNT. And then you can use this machine to go down to bedrock. Once you have enough space, you can just place the schematic, and you need to align it just on top of the bedrock. You need to make sure nothing is sticking to the walls, and you need to have 2 blocks in front of the machine before reaching the terrain. Those blocks won't break anything because technically you can just have 1 block between the terrain and the machine, but having 2 blocks just prevent the machine from breaking if you have a lot of gravel like in this case. To build the trencher, I like to do it layer by layer. Just be careful while you're building it. If you are, for example, placing this piston just on top of the redstone block, it's gonna move this entire thing. That's why every now and then I like to place immovables in front of the 4 grabbers. So even if you place this piston here, it's not gonna move anything. Once you reach the middle part, make sure to not trigger any observer or there is a big chance something is gonna break. And for this part, you have to place this redstone block last, because if you place this first and then this slime block, it's gonna update the flying machine. And same thing for the TNT dupers, try not to update any observers, and it's also safer to place the TNT last, so you don't blow up anything. If you want to place a minecart with a bot on it to load the trencher, you have multiple options, and you can, for example, go at the top. Here you need to place a slime block, a wall, a rail and a minecart on it. And once you're done with the trencher, you can either mine it or use TNT to blow it up, using, for example, the same machine that you used to clear the terrain. Now I'm gonna show you a way to fix your trencher if it ends up breaking for some reason. And usually it's kind of easy to fix it, but in some scenario it can be a bit annoying. If you have lava and water close together, it can create cobblestone, and it can sometimes break the trencher really badly. Like in this case, for example, these parts haven't moved, and so you have to rebuild them. You can't really move just this. But most of the time your trencher will break because you have an immovable block in the way. Like in this case, for example, I had a beehive here just next to the birch tree, and I forgot to remove it. In my case, I already removed it, so I placed a yellow concrete instead. And so if your trencher breaks this way, you have to remove the immovable first. Then I highly suggest you to stop the trencher. So you just have to click on the fence gate, and you have to make sure this observer will get sent down. And now it can't move even if you fix the machine. And since I had an immovable, you can see that all of these 3 grabbers have reached the top, but this one has been stuck here. And so I have to reconnect this to this part. And if your trencher gets stuck really low in the world, it might be easier to just remove the few blocks and then rebuild them at the top. But in my case, it stopped here around Y70, so it's easier to move the machine instead of trying to rebuild it. The first thing you can do is to remove those blocks here. If you have the TNT still on, it shouldn't matter, but if, like me, you unloaded the trencher, the TNT will be off, and so it's best to remove those blocks manually. And once you have made sure all of those sides have no blocks, you need to send this machine up. But you can't send it up directly because it doesn't have any engine. So you first need to go up here, and you need to go around where the machine stops, and you will need to extend this piston every few blocks. So for that it's easier to have a lot of buttons. You can also use levers or other blocks, and you just need to place it in front of the observer. And so you can go then on the next layer and do the same thing. Once you reach the top, you might need to trigger this one and also this one, and then you can go at the very top and you can place a button in front of this observer here, and that will send the flying machine down. And now the 2 parts have connected, and you need to send the entire thing up again. So you need to come on top of this part, and you will need to trigger this normal piston here. So you can just place any block next to it, and it will go up. And then you can make sure the entire thing goes up. So everything works, and I just have to wait until it has reached the top. And now we can see the machine has reached the top. It's also aligned here. So now we have to send all those 4 grabbers down, which will reset the trencher. And for that you have to go here on top of these observers, and again make sure this piston is retracted. And then you can just place a block, ideally a button, so it will get destroyed. And that will send all the flying machines down. And then you can load the schematic again and make sure it's correct. In my case, the only thing I need to fix is the dupers because I unloaded the trencher. And so you can decide to rebuild it because it's not a big part of the machine. But if, like me, the machine just needs to move 1 block, you can also trigger the sticky piston, and it will move the entire thing. It's not perfect, you still have to fix some of the blocks, but it's fine for the most part. And then I can run the verifier and I can see everything is correct. You just have a lot of extra blocks, but it's part of the terrain, so it's normal. And just this trapdoor which is not facing the correct orientation, but it's fine. That should be everything you need to know about these trenchers. If you have any more issue, you can ask in the comments or also in the Chronos server. I thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.